إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. All praise is due to Allah. We worship Him, we seek His refuge, and we can find in Him. And whomever Allah guides, no one can misguide. And whomever Allah misguides, no one can guide. O you who believe, fear Allah and worship Him as He should be worshipped, and do not die only except in a state of Iman. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. خصوصا على سيدنا ورسوله وخاتم الأنبياء وعلى آله الأزكياء وأصحابه الأتقياء أما بعد. Welcome back everybody to another Saturday night lecture. Alhamdulillah. Allahumma inna nas'aluka hubbuk wa hubba man yuhibbuk wa hubba amalin yuqarribuna ila hubbuk. Oh Allah, we ask for your love, and we ask for the love of those whom you love, and we ask for the love of actions that you love. So, I know it's been a while since we had one of these lectures. I think it's been at least 3 weeks now. Last time, majority of people were traveling and they were not here for the lecture, as mass ICNO was going on and things like that as well. So it's good to be back. What do we even remember from this series? It's been a while. I haven't seen some faces in a long time. Yes, Amin?
I remember Imam Ghazali.
You remember Imam Al Ghazali? Yes, Imam Al Ghazali is the one who wrote this book. We're covering a book that is called
Alwalad.
Ya ayuha Alwalad, which means my dear beloved son. My dear son, my dear beloved son. And just raise of hands real quick, who is this their first time coming to this lecture or this series? Raise your hands. Okay, so it's quite okay, so let me give a recap of this book. Ya ayuha Alwalad. Imam Al Ghazali is an Imam who lived about 1,000 years ago. Imam Al Ghazali is nicknamed Hujjatul Islam, the proof of Islam. Imagine, how great of a scholar do you have to be for other people to call you the proof of Islam, right? So Imam Al Ghazali, as we mentioned, we went through his life. When he reached about 28, 29 years old, Imam Al Ghazali was the most famous person in the Muslim world. Nobody was more famous than Imam Al Ghazali. Think of Umar Sulaiman today, right? Or Mufti Mink. Like, everybody knows who they are as scholars, right? So Imam Al Ghazali, during his time, reached the peak of being famous. And he was in charge of all Islamic academic affairs of the Muslim world in Baghdad, right? That was the Muslim capital in Baghdad, right? So he, obviously, to get there, it took, a lot of, memorization and studying under different shuyukh and scholars and things like that, right? But that just goes to show at such a young age how devoted he was to the deen, how devoted he was to learning, right? And he was so brilliant when he used to teach at the university, right? Other scholars would fill up his seats before students would fill up the seats. So all the students technically were other scholars and professors. They weren't the actual students who came to actually learn, right? Just how great he was. He was just running circles around anybody who tried to debate him. Suddenly, when he reached this highest level of, being famous, all of a sudden Imam Al Ghazali decides to go to Hajj and he disappears. Imam Al Ghazali is gone. Umar Sulaiman deactivates his Instagram account. Nobody knows where Umar Sulaiman is. Just disappears. Where's Imam Al Ghazali? Right? Imagine Umar Sulaiman doing that today. Where is he at? No, it's going to raise some questions. Ghazali leaves for about 10 years. And he travels a few different areas, but he's mostly focused in Sham, mainly Al-Quds, Jerusalem. Right? And obviously, nobody's going to know who he is at that side of the world because they didn't have pictures on Facebook and, profile picture, who Al-Ghazali was. He was just a stranger, right? Imagine from being the most famous person to almost being a nobody, traveling somewhere where nobody knows you. And it's not something that's easy to do. He spent these 10 years on himself. He put himself first. These 10 years he was doing something called tazkiyatun nafs. You know when you give zakat, what does that do to your money when you give zakat? Purifies your money. When you give charity, it purifies your money. Tazkiyatun nafs is purifying oneself. You get what I'm saying here? Right? So he spends these 10 years on focusing on himself. Sincerity. Where you develop pure sincerity, which almost every action we do in Islam goes right back to what? Sincerity in your intention. Ikhlas. You get what I'm saying? So after he comes back on the scene, he had a student that studied with him for about over 20 years. And this student writes a letter to Imam Al Ghazali. Right? And this letter here, this student starts to think, and he says, let me get to that page. He thinks to himself, ثم إنه تفكر يوما في حال نفسه وخطر على باله. This student started to think to himself. Look, number one key, reflection. We're all students of knowledge here. Every single one of us. So reflection. ثم تفكر. He started thinking, and he started thinking about his own condition. So he said, let me write a letter to the Shaykh, my Shaykh that I've studied under. And he writes a letter to the Shaykh, rahimahullah, Imam Al Ghazali. And he says, مقصودي أن يكتب الشيخ حاجتي في ورقات تكون معي مدة حياتي وأعمل بما فيها مدة عمري. The purpose I'm writing you, Shaykh, is that so you can give me pieces of advice that I can keep with me for the rest of my life and I can implement them. Right? But here's the key. He says, I want to learn أن أعلم أي نوعها ينفعني غدا ويونسني في قبري. I want to know what's going to help me out of these pieces of advice you're going to give me. I want pieces of advice that will help me tomorrow, meaning where? Meaning Saturday. What? Hereafter. Right? Tomorrow, meaning the hereafter. And then it will stay with me in my grave. Something that keeps me company in my grave. وَيُوَنِّسْنِي فِي قَبْرِي. So he wrote this letter to Imam Al Ghazali. Imam Al Ghazali writes him a letter back with about 18 to 20 pieces of advice. And every piece of advice, he starts it off by saying, Ya ayuha Alwalad, my dear beloved son. Right? And this shows you the mannerism of Al Ghazali. To take time to write back to his students, to give them knowledge, to show them, to teach them. And the first piece of advice, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I always like covering the first couple. Right? The first piece of advice, he says, اعلم أيها الولد المحب العزيز. What did we highlight of these words? He says, oh my dear beloved son. So you mean so much to me. What did we highlight out of this point? For those who were here that first time. What is Imam Al Ghazali highlighting here? What is he trying to do?
That everything he needs can be found.
No, we haven't gotten there yet. All he said was, Ya ayyuha al-walad al-muhibb al-aziz. Yes, Ham.
He's trying to make him feel like a brother.
Perfect.
That connection.
Perfect. One of the best qualities a teacher could have, and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ embodied this to the max, right? Is when he has a conversation with whoever it is, they make them feel like that they're a part of them, that you're family. That no matter what you're asking me, before everything, before I even get to your question, I'm letting you know that I care for you and I love you, right? And the Prophet ﷺ embodied that with any person who comes and talks to him. When Ibn Abbas, a young boy, would come to him, he would say, Ya ghulam, young boy, let me teach you a few words. Let me show you around the ropes, right? Every time he gives advice. That's the beautiful part. So Imam Al Ghazali is embodying that from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And then he makes dua for him. He's pushing back what he needs for a little bit, and he's making dua for him. And he says, أَطَالَ اللَّهُ بَقَاكَ بِطَاعَتِهِ وَسَلَكَ بِكَ سَبِيلِ أَحَبَّائِهِ. He says, may Allah give you a long life. Making dua for him. May Allah give you a long life. And may He, on top of that, make you close to the ones that He loves. That you spend time with the ones that Allah loves, scholars, companions, whoever it may be, right? And then He goes right to it and He says, just know that everything I'm going to give you and everything I'm going to share with you tonight, my dear beloved son, everything I'm going to give you today is going to come from where? You said it. It's going to come from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Meaning, I'm not going to give you anything that's brand new. Every piece of advice I'm giving you today is going to come directly from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? Meaning the Quran and Sunnah. Everything I'm going to give you is going to come directly from the Messenger. And he moves on and continues. He says, you've been studying with me for 20 years. So if this message of the Prophet hasn't reached you, alayhi salatu salam, what have you been doing? What you've been doing with your life? Right? And if it has reached you, then what do you need from me? All your answers are there. I'm not giving you anything brand new. They're in the life of the Prophet and they're in the Quran. That's the first piece of advice. He does this to basically ignite a fire in his student. To show him that you should also take those steps to learn and dig deep and reflect by yourself before you come to me. And then he moves on, right? And the second piece of advice he gives directly from a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he says, I'm going to give you ma nasaha bihi Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ummata. He says, I'm going to give you words that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave to his ummah. And he says, علامة إعراض الله تعالى عن العبد اشتغاله بما لا يعنيه. One of the signs Allah has neglected you as a servant is by making you busy with things that mean nothing to you, that have nothing to do with you. Scrolling on social media for hours does nothing for you. You're looking at information that has nothing to do with you. One of the signs that Allah has neglected you is that you start making yourself busy with things that have nothing to do with you. That's one of the signs. So now he's also just pushing underneath, trying to dig underneath the student and letting him know, reflect on yourself. Am I this person? How many hours do I spend worrying about things that have nothing to do with me? Right? This is tazkiyah. This is what it's about. This is purely questioning yourself, reflecting on yourself, figuring out what's going on and what do I need to change. Right? So we're about 9 pieces of advice into this book. And some of them are long, some of them are short. And to recap what we talked about last week, right? The 9th piece of advice, he says, عِشْ مَا شِئْتَ فَإِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ. Live how you want because you are truly dead. وَأَحْبِبْ مَا شِئْتَ فَإِنَّكَ مُفَارِقُ. And love whom you want because you guys will be separated. وَأَعْمِلْ مَا شِئْتَ. Do as you want. فَإِنَّكَ مُجْزِيٌ بِهِ. Feel free, do whatever you want. You will face the consequences of everything that you do. And we spent a whole lecture on just 10 words that Imam Al Ghazali gave last lecture, right? Huge, big pieces of advice in such short words. And that's the beauty of Imam Al Ghazali, is he can write volumes of books and you can grasp so much from it, or he can give you just a few words of advice that you can carry with you for the rest of your life. Right? عِشْ مَا شِئْتَ. Live how you want. So that means if you have no shame in what you do, live how you want. Enjoy it. Live your life. Nobody's stopping you. But just understand, keep in the back of your mind that you're going to die. And love whom you want. Eventually understand that you and them will have to separate. Whether it's death or any other matter that's going to separate you guys. And do whatever you want. وَأَعْمِلْ مَا شِئْتَ. Just understand you will face every single consequence of everything that you've done. Right? And then he continues and he says, and the whole highlight of the book is actions, or knowledge without actions means, what does it mean?
Nothing.
Nothing. Al-ilmu bila amal means nothing. Knowledge without action, 0. So he says, Al-ilmu bila amal junoon. Having knowledge, but you're not acting upon it, you're not doing the actions, pure insanity. وَالْعَمَلُ بِلَا عِلْمٍ لَا يَكُونُ. But doing actions with no basis of knowledge behind it, it doesn't fit, it doesn't work, because you don't even know why you're doing the actions you're doing. You don't have a reason to do them, right? So he says it doesn't work out, لا يكون, right? And then he throws this piece of advice which is huge, and he says, understand and know أن علما لا يبعدك اليوم عن المعاصي. Any knowledge you gain today that doesn't push you away from doing sins, ولا يحملك على طاعته or على الطاعة, and if it doesn't bring you closer to the worship of Allah, right? Then understand لن يبعدك غدا عن النار. Then understand that this knowledge will not push you away from hellfire. Meaning, anything you learn today that doesn't bring you, if anything that you learn, if it brings you towards doing ma'asi, right? It doesn't push you away, but it brings you closer. And even though those things that you're learning, it doesn't bring you closer to the worship of Allah, then understand tomorrow, it's not going to push you from hellfire. Now, let's not get too hung up on this and start saying, well, Imam Al Ghazali doesn't want us to study, if I'm learning biology in school that has nothing to do with Islam, does that mean I can't study? I can't go to school? I'm not learning Islamic studies? Does that mean it's not pushing me away from what is he trying to get to, right? But the point that Imam Al Ghazali is trying to say is that, and we connected this we connected this last time, and he says, وَلَمْ تَعْمَلِ الْيَوْمِ, and if you don't act upon knowledge today, and the days just pass by, you will say tomorrow, and he mentions an ayah from Surah As-Sajdah, I believe, ayah 54, and he says, فَارْجِعْنَا نَعْمَلْ صَالِحًا. Those people who will be thrown in hellfire, they will say, Ya Allah, take me back, I will do good. Please take me back, return me. I'm going to change. I'm going to take care of business this time. I'm going to do exactly what you commanded me to do. Imam Al Ghazali replies to them in a sarcastic, dry humor, and he says, Ya ahmaq, you stupid, idiot, foolish person. Anta min hunak. You just came from there. And you're going to say, take me back, farja'ni? Doesn't work like that. You just came from there. Why would we take you back? You were just in the dunya. Why would I take you back now? Why would you want to be returned? You just came from there. You had your chance, you had your time, and you didn't act upon it. Right? You didn't act upon it. So that's the 9th piece of advice that he gave that we covered last time. Inshallah, today we'll get into the 10th piece of advice. And this advice kind of starts revolving around more of reflection upon yourself. And this 10th piece of advice, I think every single one of us, it's kind of 3 steps in one advice. I think every single one of us has experienced it in our life, one way or another. So he says, Ya ayuha Alwalad, as he starts every piece of advice, he says, Ya ayuha Alwalad. He says, Ij'al al-himmata fi ruh. What does himma mean? For those who know Arabic. Himma. Importance. Right? Ij'al al-himma fi ruh. He says, put your importance in where? In your soul. وَالْهَزِيمَةَ فِي النَّفْسِ. What's hazima? Defeat. So he's saying defeat your nafs. Defeat your nafs. That's the second piece. And he says, وَالْمَوْتَ فِي الْبَدَنِ. Death to the body. Not literally, but figuratively. Destroy it. Right? And when I say that every single one of us has experienced this before, all 3 pieces, this is what I mean. Everyone here in this room has that energy and himma, they place it into something. Every single one of you has something of importance to you. So something is important to you, whether it's your studies, your job, the gym, whatever it is. It's himma, it's important for you, muhim for you. Right? That's number 1. So everybody has experienced himma where we prioritize certain things. You've experienced that. Number 2 is he talked about al-hazimatu fi nafs. Taking an L. Defeating. Right? Everyone in their life has experienced some type of loss, losing somebody or losing a competition, or even if it's coming second place in your class, whatever it is, you've taken an L, you've experienced an L. You know what a loss feels like. And number 3 is, he says, everyone at some point has to destroy or kill something of their past from their body. Whether it's a bad habit you do and you know it's bad, so you gotta kill it. Right? It's not doing you any good. It's not doing your body any good. So when he says al-mawta fil badni, that's what he means. Death to the body. Right? You're doing something with your body and you know it's no good, so you have to destroy it. You have to kill it. Figuratively. Right? So we've experienced these 3 things. And he says that you place your desire and most of your energy, you should put it in where? In your soul. But comparatively, us in this dunya, we don't do that. We put most of our energy into bettering our image for others. Sah? Gotta make sure I hit the gym, wear my makeup, get a haircut, dress nice, do this, do that, right? How many hours I spend in front of the mirror to make sure I look good for other people. That energy I'm using for other people. New Year's, new me, hit the gym so other people can say I'm fit. Not for me, so other people. Right? This himma in this dunya, we put it towards for others. Imam Al Ghazali said, forget others, forget your image. Death to the body, who cares? Your most important thing is your himma where? In your soul. As mentioned in the Gospel of Sayyidina Isa in the Bible, where he uses this last time, and he said that when a person is being carried to their grave, one of the questions they're asked is, and Allah might ask all of us this. Now keep in mind, this is not coming from the Sunnah, it's not coming from Hadith, it's not coming from Quran. We're just using this as an example. Okay? One of the questions that a person might get asked is that, "Oh servant, how many hours have you spent beautifying yourself for my creation, and how many hours have you spent beautifying yourself for me? What have you and I done to make ourselves look good in front of Allah? But what do we do to make ourselves good in front of others?" Some of us have to lie to make ourselves look good. Right? Some of us have to do some sneaky stuff to make ourselves look good. But what have we done to make ourselves look good in front of Allah? Some of us purely go get a degree because our parents forced us, and so people can say Bash Muhandis, engineer, doctor, lawyer, business owner. For others, so you can have that title. But what have you done to purify yourself and beautify yourself in front of Allah? Right? And this is the point he's trying to make. He's saying that you need to put that energy, that himma, that importance to your soul. Beautify this soul of yours. Right? The body, maut lil badan. Kill it, destroy it. But beautify your soul first and foremost. He's not saying don't take care of your body, because that's from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. You need to do that. You need to stay healthy. You need to stay on top of it. But that energy you put in to stay on top of your body, are you equating that? Are you putting that same energy to look beautiful in front of Allah or no? Balance that out. Reflect upon that. See what you're doing in your life, right? And then when it comes to the nafs, you constantly have to break your nafs. Because it doesn't matter how beautiful you are, what kind of makeup you put on, how jacked you are in the gym, how handsome you are. If you're an ugly person on the inside, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It means absolutely nothing. And people will eventually catch on. They'll understand and they'll know. They'll understand and they'll know. Because if Allah loves somebody, then everybody around them will also love them. But if Allah dislikes somebody, no matter who they are, eventually everybody around will also dislike and not want to even be around that person, right? And we experience this, I think the time we experience this the most is in and Ramadan. We experience all three of these things. Himma in your soul, breaking your nafs, and death to the body. We experience it in Ramadan, all in 1 month. Think about it, right? When Ramadan comes around, we all put the himma in the soul. 110%. We want to be on a spiritual high that we've never reached before when Ramadan comes. We prioritize our soul and our spirit. All of a sudden we're reading extra Quran. All of a sudden we're praying every sunnah. All of a sudden we're giving extra deeds. We're doing things. We're helping out in the household. Bro hasn't washed a dish in a year and now all of a sudden he's helping his mom in Ramadan. Right? Doing all the good deeds he can do. Right? We experience this in Ramadan. This is himma. Right? We experience this himma during Ramadan. And then at the same time, our nafs is constantly taking L's during Ramadan. We're constantly losing in Ramadan. Why? I'm hungry. My nafs tells me to eat. But I have to fight that. No, don't eat. You're fasting. Don't watch that. You're fasting. It's Ramadan. Don't say that. Don't cuss. You're fasting. Right? We're constantly breaking our nafs and making our nafs take the L. Not our faith. Our nafs. Right? Break your nafs. Defeat it. Don't have a nafs al-lawama. Don't have a nafs that tells you to go do bad things. Right? Always defeat your nafs. Constantly. And then the last point is we're not even focused on our bodies when it comes to Ramadan. We don't care whatsoever. We're depriving ourselves from food, water for hours and hours of the day. We don't have the energy to hit the gym anymore. Right? Those last 10 nights of Ramadan come, it's brutal. It's tough. Right? We're sleep deprived and we're still waking up on 3 hours of sleep to make sure we pray. Right? We're destroying. That's killing the body. Right? All these three things that Imam Al Ghazali is advising, we embody that during the month of Ramadan. That means we are capable of embodying it for the rest of our life. Right? Not saying you need to fast every day and not sleep some nights or whatever the case may be. But we embody that. And the beautiful part is, have you ever looked at somebody in the last 10 days of Ramadan? Like by the end of the whole night, especially those who have iftar at the masjid, then pray Maghrib, right? Then stay, pray Isha, Shafa' and Watr, then stay, sleep for a couple hours in the masjid doing i'tikaf, then wake up for tahajjud, then pray fajr. The whole night, they're tired. I guarantee you the last thing they want during that, at the end of the night, is to take a selfie. They look dreadful. They don't want to take a picture with you. Nobody wants a picture in the last 10 days. Right? You see people walking out the masjid, tears running down their eyes, streaks of tears. Nobody's worried about what they're wearing. It's a lot different than the first 10 days of Ramadan. Right? Because that goes to show we don't care about our bodies at that moment. We don't care about our image in front of everybody. All we care about is our image with Allah. That's all we care about in those last 10 nights. But you know what's crazy? In this world, you see them walking out of the masjid after the 10 nights are over, they don't look too hot. They're the most beautiful thing ever. They actually look hot because the masjid AC has been broken and they're sweating. The fans ain't working. You're stuck in Masjid Nur basement and it's boiling. You don't know what to do. Right? They don't look too hot. But to us, they're the most beautiful creature at that moment. Because when you start seeing purely with your heart, you disregard everything else. You start seeing a person who stayed all night, who prayed all night, who got closer to Allah all night. You're not worried about physical appearance. You're not looking with the eyes of this dunya. You're looking with the eyes of your heart. Right? And that's the beautiful part about Ramadan. And we embody these three things. We put importance in our soul, himma, fi ruh. And we put hazima, fi nafs. And we break our souls, our nafs. What they tell us to do, what not to do. We break that during Ramadan. And our bodies, we just kind of neglect them. We're not eating properly. We're malnourished. It's tough. Right? These three things we embody during the month of Ramadan. So when you look at your life, you have to constantly reflect and redefine, what am I doing certain things for? Right? Constantly, where am I placing my energy? Where am I placing my importance? What am I doing with my life on a day-to-day basis? What's going on here, right? And this is what Imam Al Ghazali is trying to get to, is constant reflection upon yourself. And maybe this example that the youth could probably relate to is, say Isha right now, let's say 6:30, right? The boys hit you up, your friend group hits you up, let's go out, let's go watch a movie. Movie starts at 6:30. Is the perfect time for you to test yourself. Where is my himma at this moment? Where is my importance at this moment being placed? Catch the movie? Pray Isha. Which one? No, I'll pray later when we come back. I can pray Isha all the way till Fajr, right? Right? I got that time window. It's in the hadith, I know it. But where's your importance? Who's rushing to salah? Who's rushing to the worship of Allah? Remember in the Day of Judgment series we said, وَالسَّابِقُونَ السَّابِقُونَ? Those who rush on the Day of Judgment, where are they rushing to? Allah. Everybody else is drowning in their sweat, and these people are rushing, zooming past you. السَّابِقُونَ السَّابِقُونَ أُولَٰئِكَ الْمُقَرَّبُونَ. They are the ones who are close to me. Al-Muqarrabun. They're the ones who are close to Allah. What are they sabiqun for? Because in this dunya, sabiquna ila ta'atillahi fi dunya. They rushed to worship Allah in this dunya. So in the akhirah, they're rushing to the shade and the throne of Allah in the akhirah. وَالسَّابِقُونَ السَّابِقُونَ. So at that moment, when they're hitting you up, let's go out, 6:30, where's your himma fall? Where's your importance? Right? And then beyond that, you start reflecting and thinking, well, what's the content of the movie that we're even watching? Is it even halal? Is it even right? Is this going to be something that pleases Allah? Right? This is where you got to take reflection on a deeper level in every action that you do. أُوزِنُوا أَعْمَالَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تُوزَنُوا. Weigh your deeds before you are weighed. Reflect on your salah, every single salah. After assalamu alaikum, you do your istighfar and your mu'aqabat. After that, you start reflecting and saying, how is my salah? Was that a salah that Allah accepted or not? Where was my mind? Where was my khushu'? What was I thinking about? How connected did I feel? Same with Taraweeh, when that comes, and when Ramadan comes, and every action that you do, think of your sincerity. Start weighing your actions. Put them on your own scale before they're put on the scale. And once they're put on that scale, on the Day of Judgment, it's no going back. And that's a scale that weighs everything, including intention, including sincerity, including the deepest things that you've had in your heart. It will weigh it. It'll all come out. So reflect upon your actions. Reflect upon your deeds. Put that himma and importance into your soul before you move on to anything else. Right? And we talked about beautifying yourself for the image of others. How many of us sacrifice our sleep to pray Fajr on time? How many of us sacrifice our sleep to pray Tahajjud? How many of us sacrifice Mondays and Thursdays to fast for Allah? The voluntary acts. How many of us do that? Right? These are the acts that you use to beautify yourself for Allah. And those are the deepest acts where you're super sincere because nobody else sees it. You can go work all day long and nobody will know you're fasting on a Monday or a Thursday. You're just not hungry. You could wake up 4 a.m., pray Tahajjud, and nobody will know but you. That's where the sincerity aspect comes into play. Right? So, constant reflection. Let your nafs take the L, but don't let your iman take the L. Don't let your faith lose. But if your body loses, if your nafs loses, fine. If you gotta fast and your body's a little bit deprived, fine. But don't let your iman take the L in this scenario, ever. Don't let that be the case, right? And a good way to keep discipline Well, actually, let me hear your thoughts. What are some ways you guys discipline yourself? How do you keep yourself accountable and disciplined in certain things that you do?
Having an accountability partner.
Having an accountability partner, expand on that.
It's easy for you to give yourself a goal and just, if you're the only one enforcing it,
Mm-hmm.
it's easy for you to go easy on yourself. But
Yep.
if you have someone that's, going hard on you and you're going hard on them and you guys together keep each other accountable, you're more likely to follow through with it.
110%. Easy for you to say, married guy. But, mashallah, may Allah bless you guys. A good way, like he said, is having an accountability partner. You guys both have goals, but push each other to reach those goals, right? May Allah allow the young shabab to get married, so we can have accountability partners. Yes, Ishaq.
How we just have a student mentality.
Have a what?
Like a student mentality.
A student mentality?
Knowing that you can always be better.
Ooh, that's amazing. Having a student, as Haq said, having a student mentality. Meaning that you know you can be better. There's always something for you to learn. Right? Always something. That's why a lot of the scholars, you ask them, and you'll come sit next to them, and there's, ages between you guys. But they'll still listen to everything you have to say. They'll still listen to everything you have to say, right? That is a key and an aspect, being a student of knowledge, right? There's something I can always learn, something I can always keep moving, and that helps keep somebody disciplined. What else? How do you keep yourself disciplined to go to the gym? No, Abdul.
A journal.
What is it?
A journal.
A journal? How does a journal help you?
Write down what you're hitting, what you need to hit.
But how does that keep you disciplined though?
Because you get excited.
I can write all I want in a journal. I can write all these notes of what I've learned, and if I'm not using them,
I don't know, you just gotta have intention. Like,
Intention?
Get excited to write it down every day.
okay, get excited to write it down. Every sisters, I want to hear from you guys. How do you keep yourself disciplined? Maybe a question for the mothers. Because when you have kids, you're like, oh Allah, just keep me patient.
Let's say sincerity, plus, because if you keep reminding yourself of why you're doing what you're doing, that's a way to hold yourself accountable to keep doing it properly.
Constantly keeping that goal in mind of why you're doing it, and that way you would hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, for the sake of Allah. It doesn't matter if you're cooking in the kitchen or you're doing your salah or getting up for tahajjud or fasting.
Yeah, 110%. Everybody hear that? Doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're in the kitchen, whatever action you're doing, but just remember that it's for Allah, and I'm raising a family, and I gotta stay on top of it. I'm the glue to everything, right? It's a great part. Yes, another one?
Just set goals.
Set goals? Yeah, set goals that you want to accomplish, whether they're big goals, incremental goals. Yes, Hector.
Yeah, to add on to that, like setting deadlines.
Deadlines, I like that. Okay, setting deadlines. So you say, I want to accomplish so-and-so by this date or whatever. Okay, yes, I mean.
Think of something that will motivate you to do your goals.
Think of something that will motivate you. So kind of similar to what the sister said as well. Yes.
Self-confidence, believe in yourself that
I like that one.
Shaitan won't be able to defeat you when you're...
Self-confidence, believe in yourself. That no matter what I'm doing it for Allah, and that shaitan, even he's going to try to mess with me, I got this, right? Yes, Hamza.
Just alarms.
Alarms, setting alarms. You got to set alarms the way I'm a sleeper. I have to, right? I like that, setting alarms. I think a good way to discipline yourself, especially when it comes to the matters of the deen, religiously, right, is not to stay away from haram. You need to stay away from haram, that's obvious. But stay away from halal. How? I have an addiction to Kinder Buenos, the chocolates. Is it haram for me to eat a Kinder Bueno? Is it haram for me to eat a Kinder Bueno?
It's
No.
for Israel.
Okay, they support Israel. Let's talk another chocolate. Let's eat another chocolate. Right? I like hummus goodness too much. I like the Libyan burger they sell. Is it haram for me to eat that burger?
Yeah,
No.
it's Libya.
Yeah, it's Libyan. No, it's not haram, Mufti. Thank you. It's not haram, right? But me staying away from this is what I mean by I say discipline yourself by staying away from halal. You know that you're a soda addict? Okay, I need to slow it down. I need to stop before this deteriorates my health. I'm going to stop from that. Something halal. There's no alcohol in that soda that I'm drinking. And they don't support Israel, right? So, in that case, I need to stay away from it. Disciplining myself with the halal, right? So, and also one of my teachers, he was telling a story about how in the last 10 days of Ramadan, he went to Umrah. And may Allah allow us to all make Umrah in Ramadan. Ameen. So he went to Umrah, and obviously some of his teachers out there were constantly inviting him. And they're making these big meals for him, you know? And he made a goal for himself to not eat any meat in the last 10 days and to not overfill his stomach, right? Just living off fruits and vegetables and that's it, and no meat, and he doesn't want to overeat. So that's him disciplining himself to stay away from halal. It's okay to eat meat. You've been hungry all day, you're fasting. It's hot. You deserve to replenish yourself, right? But that was his goal, to discipline himself. And the reason you do that is because you know now to stay away from things that are halal that you've made for yourself, that you say this is a line. So when haram comes, I'm chilling. I'm good. Because I'm allowed to do this and I stayed away from it. Let alone this that I'm not allowed to do, I'm good. Right? A good way to this, because you don't want to test yourself when it comes to haram. When that comes, then what? Now you slip up, okay, next goal, next time. Right? Rather discipline yourself and train yourself with what's good and what's halal. That way you don't slip up. And even if you do, you slip up in something that's halal. But when something bad happens or haram happens, you can stay firm. Right? And may Allah allow us to always be firm. Inshallah. Amen. Right? And then on the same point, he goes on, he says, the reason why he says, put himma in your soul and break your nafs and death, quote unquote, to the body, he says that because لِأَنَّ مَنْزِلِكَ الْقَبْرِ. He says, because your destination and your home is the grave. This is why you do it. Because your destination is the grave, right? And he says, وَأَهْلُ الْمَقَابِرِ يَنْتَظِرُونَكَ فِي كُلِّ لَحْظَةٍ مَتَى تَصِلْ إِلَيْهِمْ. And the people of the grave are waiting for you every single moment at when and what time you will arrive to them. The people of the grave are waiting for you, right? إِيَّاكَ 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 ثُمَّ إِيَّاكَ. So beware and be careful of reaching them, right? أَن تَصِلْ إِلَيْهِمْ بِلَا زَادٍ. Beware of reaching the people of the grave without having provision. What's this provision? Your deeds. When you're packing for a trip, overpack, don't underpack. Why do you overpack? You don't want to get to your trip and you don't have enough clothes to wear. You don't want to get to the grave and not have enough deeds to save you in the grave. Right? So when he says, إِيَّاكَ أَن تَصِلْ إِلَيْهِمْ بِلَا زَادٍ, be careful, be aware, for you to not reach them without having enough provision. Right? And if you think about this, think about the dua we make when we go to the graveyards and visit the graveyards. What's the dua we make? Assalamu alaikum ya ahl al-qubur, inna insha Allah bikum لاحقون. نسأل الله لنا ولكم العافية. You give salam to the people of the grave and you say, we are one step behind. We're coming right to you. We're next to you guys. Deep this dua for a second. Think about this dua for a second and what it does to your psyche. Especially if you truly mean every word you say when you say the dua when you enter the grave. Right? You start thinking, you're like, yo, my 5-year plan means nothing. My 10-year plan means nothing. Everything I've planned means absolutely nothing. You're acknowledging and you're admitting that I'm coming. You're acknowledging and you're admitting that I'm next to you. I'm just a step behind. But I'm coming to you.
The adhan of your birth belongs to your death.
What was that?
The adhan at your birth belongs to your death.
Exactly, right? Many scholars say that. When you were born, adhan is called. When you die,
That's why they don't call it then.
exactly, right? But think about it. When you make this dua, you're acknowledging and you're admitting 110% that I'm right there. I'm right there. I'm with you guys. I'm with you guys. Think about what that does to your psyche. On that drive home from Bennett Cemetery, now you're picking up the phone, calling your friends and family. Assalamu alaikum, mama. I hope everything is good. You're making sure your ties are still good. Calling your friends you haven't talked to in a minute, making sure everything is still good. You now care just a little bit more. And that's why the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used to frequently visit the graves. Because it's a great way to just destroy everything that's going on in this dunya and reflect upon where I'm going to end. Where is my destination? And when you truly realize, there's a story of this one scholar where he said, I met this young guy at the masjid and they were making a call. There was a janazah al-dhuhr. A janazah al-dhuhr. So he said, after the janazah was over, the people that were working the grave, they said, hey, we need help, digging the next grave to prepare it. So he said, me and this young boy volunteered. We started digging up the next grave. That way, if there's something that happens, it's ready for the next person. He says, Asr time came and we had to bury that boy who helped me dig the grave. Asr time came, young man. We buried him. And back home in the Muslim countries, somebody dies Fajr by Dhuhr, they're in the grave. They don't wait. Same day. It happens immediately. This man dug his own grave. You see, when you go to the graveyard and you realize and you make that statement and you understand, Inna bikum lahiqun. We're coming to you guys. We're going to meet you guys. Imam Al Ghazali is saying, make sure and understand that your destination is the grave. Inna manzilika al-qabr. Your home is the grave. So beware, iyyaka thumma iyyaka, that you reach those people without provision. Don't be that person. You're going on a trip and you underpack. You don't have enough clothes for the trip. You're making the trip right now. You're preparing for it. And you're going to have to make it. So beware that when you go on that trip, that you have enough good deeds that will take care of you in the grave. Inshallah. May Allah allow us to be all taken care of in the grave, inshallah. Last point I want to cover here is, he mentions the story of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and it's kind of like just kind of for example purposes, and he says, قال أبو بكر الصديق رضي الله عنه هذه الأجساد قفص الطيور أو اسطبل الدواب. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq says that these bodies, هذه الأسجاد قفص الطيور. Your body is either the cage of a bird or an animal stable. Your body is one or the other. Where's the connection here? So Imam Al Ghazali is saying, فَتَفَكَّرْ فِي نَفْسِكَ. Think about yourself and reflect. مِنْ أَيُّهُمَا أَنْتَ. Which one are you? Is your body the cage of a bird? Or is your body the stable that holds in animals? Think about it, right? And he says, إِن كُنْتَ مِنَ الطُّيُورِ الْعُلْوِيَّةِ فَحِينَ تَسْمَعْ. And if you were one of the birds, if you chose the cage of the bird, when you hear, when Allah says in Surah Al-Fajr, what does he say? يَا أَيَّتُهَا النَّفْسُ الْمُطْمَئِنَّةِ ارْجِعِي إِلَىٰ رَبِّكِ رَاضِيَةً مَرْضِيَّةً. If you're one of the birds and you hear that call, ارْجِعِي, your cage opens, you fly to Allah. Your cage opens. But if you're an animal in a stubble, if you're an animal in a stable, the cage opens, can you fly? No. You're still roaming. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is saying the body is either or. Which one are you? Which one is your body? Right? And then he says, and he mentions the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, كما قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, and he relates this to اهتز اهتز عرش الرحمن من موت سعد بن معاذ. اهتز. What does اهتز mean?
Shook.
Shook. Right? The throne of Allah shook. The throne of Allah shook when Sa'd ibn Mu'adh passed away. Who knows who Sa'd ibn Mu'adh radiallahu anhu? Who knows who he is? He's a companion. Okay, yes?
Was he the companion that the Prophet sent with the 12 people that came? No?
Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. What is he most... Okay, let's start with this. Was Sa'd ibn Mu'adh from al-Muhajirun, from the people who migrated, or was he from the Ansar, from the people who were in Medina already when the Prophet came? Which one was he?
Muhajirun.
Muhajir, who said, what's another answer? Ansar. You said Muhajir, right? He is an Ansari, right? So Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, when he died, the throne of Allah shook. Why? There was a moment where right before Badr, before they were going to war, and the Prophet ﷺ sat with his companions, asking them, what should we do? What's happening? Right? And Muhajirun, of course, they followed him all the way from Mecca. They know the answer. We're with you. They know the answer. They've been through it. Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, who's an Ansari in Medina, replies back and he says, Ya Rasulullah, if you were to take us to the ocean, we'll follow you to the ocean. We'll follow you to the ocean. There's a man who wasn't a Muhajir, he was from the Ansar. And he was the first to speak up from the Ansar and say that to the Prophet ﷺ. Right? The loyalty he had for a man he's just met. He wasn't a Muslim those 13 years in Mecca. This is a man he just met. And he's saying, Ya Rasulullah, me and my people will follow you even if you lead us to the ocean inside of it and we drown, we're going to follow you there. That's how I ride for you, Ya Rasulullah. That's what I do for you. That's what he said. And the Muhajirun are looking like we just traveled all the way from Mecca, bro. Like, we've been tortured. Right? And Sa'd ibn Mu'adh gained such a status with the Prophet that other Sahaba who Muhajirun started to get jealous of it. It's not easy to say and make a statement like that to a man you just met. You don't even know if he really is the truth yet. But he knew. He had it in him. It was rooted inside him. Right? So that's the reason why the throne of Allah shook when he passed away. So he says, and he makes this analogy. And he talks about Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. And what he says next is that when you look at the animals, right? Because we talked about a stable and the animals inside of a stable. When you look at the animals, many of us, we might pass by a field and there's cattle. We're going to think we're better than the cattle. Correct? We're more intelligent. Of course we are. We make buildings and we have this whole society. We're more intelligent. But what about intelligent in terms of our faith? Who's more intelligent? Us or a cattle? An animal of Allah. Right? Because intelligence, through Allah's lens, is what? Does that creature fulfill what I created them for? And we know, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Our fulfillment and our reason for creation was to worship Allah. So intelligence through the lens of Allah is, does my creation fulfill what I created them for? That's what intelligence is based off of, right? So when you look at it, every creation that Allah created does what it's supposed to do except a human being. Every creation that Allah created, the mountains were created for a certain reason. The clouds were created for a certain reason. Allah commands the clouds to blow, wind, with wind they move. Rain, it rains. Commands the earth to grow, it grows. Every creation obeys Allah except the human being. Every creation fulfills the reason why it was created except the human being. Right? So when he's making this assumption, look at the ayah that Allah says here in this Quran. He says, أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ. What's the word after that, Ameen?
بل هم أضل.
بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ. Truly, they are like the cattle. But no. They're worse than the cattle. Human beings are worse than that. بَلْ هُمْ. They are more misguided. The cattle, like the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, every creation does tasbih and hamd for Allah. No matter what. In their own way. Grass, cows, whatever it is, they do tasbih. They're constantly remembering Allah. But me and you, that cattle woke up, started immediately praising Allah. Me and you, we didn't even pray Fajr. Who's better? You see what I'm saying? They are like the an'am. They're like cattle. But they're even worse than that. And this is the connection Allah makes in the Quran. And when Abu Bakr Siddiq says, I know it's kind of odd when you hear that, and he says, the body is like the cage of a bird or the stable of animals. If you don't truly understand it and deep it, you're not going to know. But this is the meaning behind that. Right? And then, just to remember, and this all comes down to us doing the bare minimum. Which is 5 times a day, Shahadu an la ilaha illallah, fasting Ramadan, going to Hajj for those who can, giving zakat. That's a bare minimum. And as we mentioned in a hadith Qudsi a few weeks ago, the only way you get close to Allah is you do the bare minimum. But how do you achieve the love of Allah? Do you just want to do the bare minimum to pass by? Or do you want to love Allah? Which one is it? Or do you want Allah to love you? And the hadith Qudsi says, وَمَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيَّ عَبْدٍ بِمَا افْتَرَضْتُ إِلَيْهِ. My slave, my servant only comes near me with the things I command them. They only come close with the things I command them. بِمَا افْتَرَضْتُ إِلَيْهِ. But I will love them when they start doing voluntary acts. Voluntary acts, I will start to love them. That's when I will love my slave. That's when my slave will be close to me and I will love my slave. Right? So what really comes down to is you do your bare minimum, but remember your dhikr through the day. Remember the sunnah prayer. Remember everything else that is voluntary. Remember it. Do it. Don't forget it. And that's how you achieve the love of Allah. And then the last thing he says on this topic, he says, فَلَا تَأْمِنْ انتقالك من زاوية الدار إلى هاوية النار. He says, don't think, and this is the most important piece. He says, don't feel secure in the corner of your home. Don't feel happy in the corner of your home. Don't think you are safe in the corner of your home. Don't think that. Because one minute you're in the corner of your home, next minute God is in front of you and you have to deal with that. So don't feel safe and don't feel happy. Don't feel secure in those moments. Right? If you're not a person who reflects, if you're not a person who holds himself accountable for everything they do, then on that day you will be held accountable. Which one are you? Are you a person who puts himma and importance in your nafs, in your soul, in your ruh? Are you that person who prioritizes your ruh and how what inside your ruh, how does it look in front of Allah? Or are you a person who cares about their image in front of other people? All you care about is how you look in front of people. Are you a person who breaks the nafs? It tells you to do this and tells you to do that. You say, no, break it. Or are you a person who just follows the desire of their nafs? Are you a person who kills those certain bad habits of your body? Or are you a person who falls victim to those things? That's the reflection we all need to make. That's the points he's trying to get to. This is tazkiyatun nafs. This is purifying your soul. How do I do it? I reflect. I look. I check myself. I weigh my own deeds before they are weighed. I hold myself accountable. I discipline myself. This is how it's done. Right? And this is what Imam Al Ghazali gets to. The moral of today's advice, and it's one advice that we covered, is put your energy into places that matter, that will benefit you. Not for the worldly matters. Not for pleasing others. Not for any other reason, but put your energy, your himmah, your importance, and place it where? To beautify your ruh for Allah. Because your destination is the grave. Pack well for that destination. Make sure you have abundant deeds for that moment. Make sure your sincerity is on par when it comes to that moment. وَمَا وَجَدْنَا إِلَّا رُكَيْعَاتْ رَكَعْنَاهَا فِي جَوْفِ اللَّيْلِ. We only found 2 rak'ahs. In my grave, I only found 2 rak'ahs that benefited me in the middle of the night. That's all I found in my grave. Right? بارك الله لنا ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعني وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم. استغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. And we'll open it up to questions real quick, inshallah. What kind of questions do we have today? No mufti questions. I'm not a mufti. Yes.
The halal and haram discussion, and there's so many, everything's halal, except defined by haram. But doesn't it become haram when we overuse it, or put it in place of prayer, or put it above, our love for Allah?
It's a good question. I don't have that kind of deep level of knowledge, but I know why a lot of scholars say, for example, and I'm not here to argue about this point, don't come on my neck for this, I fall victim to this too, right? But music, for example, right? The scholars say it's haram because it pushes you away from the remembrance of Allah, right? So, to your point when you said when it becomes too abundant, then does it become haram? I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But the whole haram halal discussion, in my opinion, as one of my teachers used to say, it's kid talk. It's what you do to explain to a 7-year-old, right? Hey, don't touch. Do this. Haram halal, right? They all say it's kid talk, right? But because if you really look at it, everything is made halal for us. So, okay, you can drink whatever you want, just don't drink that. You can eat whatever you want, just don't eat that. Right? Do whatever you want, just only specific things, So, I think when it comes to if things start getting in the way of your ibadah, right? I don't know whether it becomes haram or halal at that point, I don't have that knowledge, right? But it's more of a question for yourself, do I prioritize my ibadah at that point? It says a lot about you. Right? And without exposing anybody's own sin, it says a lot about you. It's like, I prioritize my sleep before waking up for Fajr. Right? Aish mat shit, live how you want. You're young, you need all the sleep you want. You don't gotta wake up for Fajr. You need to sleep. Sah? We hear that. So, at what point do we have to sit there and draw that line? Right? Hamza, do you have your hand up? No? Any other questions? Yes, I'm on.
You said that all creations are perfect, besides humans. Do jinns also?
Jinn fall under that. Jinn wal ins, yeah. Because the 2 beings that have the free will, right? Yeah. Because we know that there's jinn who, jinn who are Muslim, right? We know jinn who were from the students of other prophets. We know jinn who, Iblis, who wasn't, right? So, they fall under that. Yes, what other questions do we have? You have a question? No? Yes.
So, I'm a revert. First ever Muslim in my family, alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah.
Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
So I know in the Quran and Hadith it says heaven is found at the feet of your mother, right? It places big emphasis on
The mothers are smiling back there, by the way.
Emphasis on family and stuff like that. Being that I'm the only Muslim ever in my family, how would you go about dealing with those relationships when they don't respect your faith? And they see it as something strange. And they just see it as something strange, they don't respect it, and it's kind of, it creates a kind of like wall there.
Okay, first disclaimer, that was a great question. First disclaimer I want to make. I can speak all I want, but I've never been in your shoes.
Yeah.
Right? So, for those who are and have experienced that, feel free to chime in. Okay? Understood? Okay, so feel free to add any advice or anything like that. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his family. His own uncles were trying to kill him. Right? Are your family trying to kill you? Okay, alhamdulillah. We're step one checked. The next step, right? His own family was trying to kill him. Right? His own uncle. Right? Some of his own family members, as he's praying, try to imagine this. Our Prophet is in sujood, praying, his head on the ground, and his family members are coming, taking the intestines of animals full of feces and putting them on top of him as he's praying. Imagine. It's something hard to, like, how could a family member do that to you, right? And then on top of that, go to wage war against you. Basically put a full-on city sanction that nobody can provide for you, they can't sell to you, they can't do nothing. You and your people all gotta starve, right? It's such a crazy level of, why would people be taken to that level, right? But regardless, we see the character of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ just push through here, right? And he constantly says, Silatul Rahm, keeping good ties with them. Constantly. They don't want you around, that's cool. But know my heart is pure. Know my heart, I don't hold nothing against you. You don't want me around, that's cool. That's fine. But my heart is pure. I'm going to still check up on you. I'm going to still make sure you're good. You hate me because I pray to Allah. Okay, that's fine. But I'm going to still do my part. Right? And we see this even in the life of Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, where, some of them were being funded, by their parents and businesses and things like that. And they lost everything. Simply because they followed Muhammad ﷺ. Right? And one of them said to her son, she said, it's either I starve myself or you stop believing in Muhammad. He's like, all right, do what you got to do, man. That's cool. Do what you got to do. He caught her bluff because eventually she's going to want to eat. You know what I'm saying? Right? I think the best thing and the best advice I can give, even though I've never been in your shoes and I don't know what that's like, right? Just looking at the Prophet's life and how much of good character he upheld regardless. And he never stopped giving them da'wah. Never. They never stopped. Right? Even when they put him in a corner, right? All right, prove to us. Show us. Where's your Lord? You're a magician. You're this. You're that. Moments, it's just near death, right? He never stopped showing his pure example. And there's another example of an old lady who was just kind of blind, didn't really see too well. And the Prophet ﷺ saw her carrying these bags or groceries or whatever, and she's trying to get home. And she lives a little bit far away. So he comes up to her. She don't know who she is, who he is. So he comes up to her. He's like, yo, let me help you with this, I'm paraphrasing. Let me help. He didn't say, yo, let me help you, you know what I'm saying? But he said, let me help you with these bags, right? And she said, oh yeah, please do. He's carrying these bags for her, and she's over here ranting to him. She's like, you seem like such a good boy. Beware of that young guy named Muhammad. He's switching people up in this town. Like, he's leading them astray. Like, bro, my dear son, you look like a good guy. Like, stop it. Don't follow him. Be careful. Walks while he's chilling, whatever. He goes all the way to her house. Puts the bags. And she's like, well, I never caught your name. I'm Muhammad. Right? And she accepted on his actions. He didn't have to say a single word to her. Right? But his actions, his reputation, his character just comes above all. And that's how a Muslim should be. Right? What other piece of advice we got here? Yes, sister, and I'm going to get to you, Uncle Omar.
So, as a mother who's a rebirth, alhamdulillah,
Go ahead.
your example is